Welcome to another Science Audio Visual Tutor, brought to you by Ronique Bernard. Human and Social Biology. Your topic for today is the skeletal system. At this point, I'm going to ask each student to take out your pencil, your pen, and your notebook. Now, what you're going to do with these, your pen and pencil and notebook, you're going to simply listen to what I'm saying. You're going to take notes. So you may pause your video at intervals and record your notes. And then you play it back to see if what you have recorded is similar to what I have said or what I have shown you. Okay, so please take notes and remember to read your notes as well. And if you want to read a textbook afterwards, no problem. Let's get into the lesson. Preview. The skeleton provides a framework to support the parts of the body. Muscles are attached to skeleton so that movement can take place or occur. The skeleton has two main parts. The axial skeleton, which is made up of the skull and the vertebral column. And the other part is the appendicular skeleton, which is made up of the girdles, which includes the shoulder and hip, to which the upper limbs and lower limbs are attached. Now we're going to look at the human skeleton.
Hi students, how are you doing? I am Mr. Skelly. What's my name? Mr. Skelly. Now Mr. Bernard is going to assist me in explaining who I am and my purpose to you and also my function. Hi. Now please pay attention and listen. Alright students, I'm Mr. Bernard and Mr. Skelly. I'm going to tell you about Mr. Skelly. Okay, now first in your syllabus you need to find out or to be able to identify major bones of the skeleton. So what we're going to do is to identify some of these bones that make up Mr. Skelly. Alright, first and foremost, let us identify this part. Now this, of course, as you know, is the skull or the cranium. Now along with the cranium you have the eye sockets, where the orbits rather, that protects the eyes, and then of course you have the lower jaw that supports the mouth, gum, the teeth, everything. Now coming from the cranium, turn around Mr. Skelly. Coming from the cranium, you'll have a bone called the vertebral column. Now the vertebral column is made up of 33 different bones. Now the first 7 bones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bones are called the cervical vertebrae. Right? Now the cervical vertebrae are the bones that allow the head to what? Rotate. Good? And then the next 12 bones, of which the rib cage, as you can see, rib cage is attached to the vertebral column. So these 7 bones now are actually called the thoracic vertebrae. Thoracic vertebrae. Now the other bones, so these are the 12 bones that make up the thoracic vertebrae. Now the other 5 bones coming down, they're called the lumbar vertebrae. And further in the lesson, we'll learn more about these bones. So once again, this main bone here is called the vertebral column. Now, the function of the vertebral column is to protect your spinal cord. So the spinal cord would run from the brain that is protected by the skull and come all the way down. Good? Now, in between each bone of the vertebral column, you will have some kind of structure called the cartilage. Now, if you eat chicken bone, that soft part of the bone is called the cartilage. And the purpose of the cartilage is to prevent the bones from rubbing against each other. Now, as you know, that this cage is otherwise called the ribs or the rib cage. Now, the rib cage, apart from the fact that it is attached to the vertebral column, it is also attached to another bone called the sternum or the breastbone. Now, along with that, you have another bone. These bones right here, these two bones, they're actually called the scapula. So these bones right here are actually called the what? Scapula. Good. Now, let us continue further down. Now, before we go any further, the skeleton is basically made up of two main parts. Now, you have the axial skeleton, which consists of or includes the skull and the vertebral column, or some persons call it the backbone. Alright? That is the axial skeleton. Now, the other skeleton is called the appendicular skeleton. So once again, the appendicular skeleton is made up of the shoulder girdle, or otherwise, and the other part is called the pelvic girdle. So this area is called the pelvic girdle. Now let's look at the other bones. Now here we have the upper limb, and of course you have a pair of upper limbs. Now, this bone is joined to this bone right here. But if you look at the bone carefully, you see that it shapes like a what? Of a spherical circle, like a ball. Good? Now, if you look carefully right here, it doesn't really touch the bone, but it's like a socket. So in other words, they call this joint a ball and socket joint. Good. The name of this bone is actually called the humerus, which is Humerus. So the humerus now is attached to this joint right here, and it's called the shoulder joint. Basically, it's called a ball and socket joint. Now, a joint really is the area where two or more bones meet. So wherever you see bones meet, it's called a joint. You have a joint right here as well, it's called an elbow joint. Now, if you notice, with the ball and socket joint, you can move, you can rotate, right? Realize that? So the hands can actually rotate, just like this, see? Rotating. Alright, so you can move in more than one plane. Now, these two bones now, there's another joint right here, right at the elbow, which is right here. It is called a hinge joint, right? So right here is a hinge joint. Now, once again, a joint is where two or more bones meet. Now note, the hinge joint, no rotation can take place, so they only can bend, right? So only one movement alone the hinge joint allows. Now, the bones right here is you have the radius, this one is the radius, and you have the ulna. Now on your worksheet, you can make note of the other bones. But these bones you need to know. The humerus, the radius, and the ulna. Very good. Now, of course, you know that this is the pelvis, right? It's called the pelvis, or the pelvic what? Girdle. Now, joined to the pelvis, you have another bone. It's the longest bone. And most times in the exam, you are asked to know about the long bone, which is this bone. And the long bone is the femur, the F-E-M-U-R. Now, it is attached once again to here. So you find a ball and socket joint. If you realize now, you see the ball? You see the ball right here? Good, see? And it's attached right here, so this is called a ball and socket joint. So there are two areas where you find the ball and socket joint. Right where the humerus attached to the shoulder, and where the femur attached to the pelvic, the pelvis, that is. Now, here is your knee bone, or they call it patella. Good? So another term for the knee bone is the patella. Now, this bone here is called the tibia, and the other bone is called the fibula. This one right here. Good? Alright. Now, some other things you need to know about the skeleton. If you could see clearly, you can see where the bones are actually attached. And that's another joint. You realize bones join together. Where bones meet, they're actually called what? Joints. And this type of joint is called the fixed joint, meaning that it allows no form of movement. Alright? Thank you, Mr. Skeletal. Alright. Now, another thing, just to introduce you to movement. Now, there are two muscles, main muscles that you have. You have the bicep muscles and you have the tricep muscles. Now, later on in the lesson, you learn that the muscles are attached to the bones by a structure called the tendon, and bones are attached to each other called the ligament. Now, as you know that between the bones, or on the surface of the bone, you have the cartilage. And later on in the lesson, you learn more about a different type of joint called the synovial joint. Alright? So we want to say bye from Mr. Scully, and it was nice meeting you.
So at this moment, we are going to once again look at the major bones of the skeleton, because of course your syllabus requires you to be able to identify the major bones of the skeleton. Alright, what are the major bones of the skeleton? Now, there are 10 major bones in the human body. And one, the cranium, then you have the mandible, then you have the vertebral column, you have the sternum, which is the breastbone, you have the ribs, you have the pelvic girdle, which is the pelvis, you have the femurs, the patella, which is the kneecap, and you have the fibulae, upper part of the lower arm, and the phalanges, of course, your fingers and toes. And I'm quite sure that if you are to look at your fingers and your toes, you'll remember phalanges. So as to help you to recall these names, all you can simply do is just touch yourself and call your bones, the ones that you can actually feel. I know you cannot see them, but you can feel them, right? Very good. Major bones. Now this section right here is called the what? Cranium, or the skull. Now another name for the cranium is what? The skull. Well, what is the function of the cranium? Alright, the function of the cranium is to what? Protect the brain. So of course, one function of the skeleton is what? Protection. Now can you imagine if something was to be, being thrown and then accidentally it hit you on your head? Guess what protects the brain? Yes, the bones The cranium. Why? The bone is very what? Hard. Good. Now, on the skull, you have two opens right here. It's called the orbit. And of course, those hold the eyes in place. Okay. Now you have the lower jaw, which is right here. Then you have the sternum, which is otherwise called the breastbone. And then you have the vertebral column. Now, can you tell me what's the function of the vertebral column? Yes, the function for the vertebral column is to protect the spinal cord. Now, this bone is called the humerus. And of course, we all know this bone. It's called the what? Ribs, or otherwise called the rib cage. Do you know what's the function of the ribs? Okay, the function of the ribs is simply to protect the lungs and the what? Heart. And of course, it also supports breathing, the movement of the what? Lungs. And this area is called the pelvic girdle. Now, for women, it is very wide and it helps to protect the reproductive organs of females. But I'm not sure for the males, huh? Okay, so the name of this section of the skeleton is called the pelvic girdle. Now, what is the name of this section here? All right, the name of this section here, or this bone, is called the femur. Now, notice now, this bone is commonly asked about in CXC, and it is referred to as the long bone. Okay. Now, do you know where this is? Your kneecap. Good. Touch your kneecap. Ah, now this is your kneecap and it is actually called the patella. Now we're going to look at the list of the functions of the skeleton. Now, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 functions. Good. Now, so the skeleton, it protects vital organs. For example, the brain, the heart, and the what? Lungs. And the skeleton also store what? Calcium. So it is a storage for what? Calcium. It also provides movement via muscle attachment. And it also provides what? Shape, or the framework for the human body, or mammals rather. And then another function of the skeleton is for the production of blood cells. Now, yes, the bone marrow in the center of the bone, it what? It produces red blood cells, white blood cells, and of course, it makes platelets. You remember these three components of the blood, which we looked at in the circulatory system? Yes, these are the components. Can you identify this? Ah, it's the what? Skull. Have you ever seen your own skull? Huh? Come on, I don't think you'll be able to answer that one, right? Okay. Now, so this is the skull. Of course, what is missing from the skull? Skin and the hair, etc., don't it? Yes, man. All right. Now, these lines that you see right here, look at my mouse. These lines are called so true, so true. Not an easy word to call, right? Good. Now, this is a kind of fibrous joint. Good. And of course, we can see one, two, three, four different bones join together. And where bones join together, it's called a joint. And this type of joint is a fixed joint because if you try to shift this bone and shift this bone and shift this bone, guess what? They won't move. So guess what? Fixed joints cannot move, or fixed joints are where bones cannot move. So therefore, fixed joints doesn't allow movement. Very good. Now, of course, the name of these bones are what? Cranial bones, from the cranium. And that, of course, is the orbit. And of course, you know what goes right here, don't it? Don't try taking out the eyes now. Okay. Ah, now, can you identify this? It's not worm, certainly not. It's a what? Brain. And this as well. Good. Now, pay attention. Guess what? The brain is hidden or concealed by the what? Bones. So therefore, the bones of the skull helps to protect the what? Bone. And of course, as I said to you before, these are fixed joints. Boom! See? Not it bunks right off, don't it? Yes. So they in fact protect your what? Brain. Note, fixed joints do not allow movement. What are joints? The place where bones meet are called joints. So where these two bones meet, this area is called a joint. Now let's look at, can you identify this bone? Yes, this is what? The rib cage. Good. Now what is inside of the rib cage or behind the rib cage? All right, well, inside the rib cage rather. It's the what? Lungs. So guess what? Can you imagine? Um, a little boy is being, you know, approaching danger, and all of a sudden, his mother or his big brother or his fathers run right in front of him and pull him away. What are they doing? Yes, they were what? Protecting him. So it's the very same way that these bones, the rib cage, protects the what? Lungs. Now let's look at the vertebral column. This structure right here is called the what? Vertebral column. Now, what is the vertebral column protecting? Well, the vertebral column is in fact protecting the spinal cord. And the spinal cord runs straight from the brain, come all the way down. And the spinal cord is responsible for a lot of things which you will be told and taught about in the next lesson. So guess what? Get the next lesson right after this. Now, there are 33 bones that makes up the vertebral column. Good. And between each vertebra, you will have what we call intervertebral disc, which is basically cartilage which allows slight movements between the vertebrae. Okay, so let's continue. Now, the first seven bones are called the cervical vertebrae. Now, the cervical vertebra was designed to support and allow movement of the head. Can you actually try to rotate your head? Come on, rotate your head. Don't be boring. Rotate your head. See me rotating my head? Oh, really? Okay. Now, all right, let's get to the next one. Now we have 12 thoracic vertebrae. Now, the word thorax, another difficult word, eh? Thoracic vertebra. Now, it's coming from the word thorax. You know what the thorax is? It is made up of the what? Rib cage. Good. And of course, in the rib cage you find the lungs and the heart, etc. Now, these bones support the ribs and allow the movement of the ribs during breathing. Now, you can understand that God Himself, He shares up the labor of the vertebral column. You have one set of bones responsible for one function, another set of bones responsible for another function. So therefore, in life, you know, if you and your friend are you're forming a team, etc., remember when each person carry out his or her function, then for the one purpose, then everything will work accordingly to plan, right? Good. Now let's look at the other set of bones. Now you have 5 lumbar vertebrae. Now what they do, they support back muscles. All those men, remember, don't get these bones damaged because you will run out of back muscles, eh? Good. So the 5 lumbar vertebrae, they support back muscles. And yes, there are other, but not significant for this lesson at the moment. So in total, we have 33 bones. And of course, you remember this, the skull and your vertebral column. And what is this one? Your pelvic girdle. And this one, your rib cage. Very good. Now, what's the function of the rib cage again? It protects lungs and heart and help